The morning light over Chicago looked like a fresh chance painted on glass. From the top floor of Armitage Tower, where the windows were so clean they pretended not to exist, Ethan Vale's reflection floated over the skyline like a ghost that worked too hard. He tightened the knot of his tie by muscle memory, not because it needed it, but because the habit kept him from thinking about the one thing he hadn't been able to fix in years, the distance between the life he'd built and the life he actually wanted. Sir. Wendy, his assistant, stood in the doorway with a tablet and the nervous smile of someone delivering rain on a picnic day. We have the restructuring list ready for signature. Legal wants it by noon. Restructuring. Such a gentle word for pushing people's lives off a cliff. Ethan signed deals like surgeons cut arteries, quickly, precisely, with polite apologies and a steady hand. The company bled and he stitched. That's how a boy from a one-bedroom on West Belmont became CEO at 38. The world applauded. Headlines used words like visionary and disciplined, and his board loved him for always doing what needed to be done. He told himself that people didn't fail because of him. The market chose winners and losers. He just read the scoreboard. His phone buzzed. A text from his ex-wife, Natalie. Don't forget Grace's school recital Friday, 6 p.m. She's got the solo. Don't mess this up. A wash of tenderness and guilt. Grace was 7, still believed in magic, still mispronounced spaghetti, on purpose to make him laugh. He typed back, wouldn't miss it. Promise. Then he put the phone face down as if the silence would make the promise safer. Wendy slid the last page across his desk for signature. There's one more. The janitorial services got rolled up in the operations cut. The supervisor flagged an issue. A custodian named Maria Alvarez is on the list, but housekeeping asked for a second review because her performance is, well, outstanding. But the headcount target is the headcount target. Outstanding doesn't pay for new software, Ethan said automatically, immediately hating how cold he sounded. If we start making exceptions, we lose the discipline. I'll review the notes, but unless there's legal risk, the numbers stand. Wendy nodded, but her mouth tightened. She'd learned to hide her heart in this place. Most of them had. Ethan picked up the file. Maria Alvarez, 10 years. Night shifts, double shifts. Commended for returning lost items, for covering when others didn't show. 0 infractions. In the margin, someone had written in blue pen. Single mom, little girl, daycare drop-offs at 6 a.m., picks up at night school on Tuesdays. Please reconsider. The blue pen felt like an intruder in a black ink world. Ethan closed the file, throat tight, annoyed at himself for feeling anything at all. Leave it, he said. I'll make the final call by noon. When the elevator doors opened onto the executive lobby, the air smelled like citrus and polished stone. He strode across the marble, leather shoes tapping time, and the receptionist sat up straighter, as if his posture set theirs. He passed a woman in a blue uniform, the kind that made people invisible, and didn't realize he'd looked at the name patch until the elevator swallowed him and the doors slid shut. Maria, it had said. All caps, yellow thread, a simple word anchored to a person whose life could be undone by a signature. Down in the bowels of the building, where the windows were painted onto concrete walls and the clocks ran a little slower, the real Maria Alvarez washed her hands at the maintenance sink. Her palms were raw, the lemon-scented soap stung like blame. She smoothed the flyaway hair from her ponytail and checked her phone. A message from her daughter's school. Reminder, Parent-Child Day on Saturday, 10 a.m. Come build a cardboard city with your child. She smiled at the idea of cardboard buildings, ones you could cut open and tape back together when they cracked, unlike the kind Mr. Vale owned that held people like tiny beating hearts inside. Breaks up, Mari, called R.O., her coworker, pushing a cart weighed down with bags of trash and the heat of other people's lives. We got floors 20 to 26 today. Big bosses upstairs. Don't smudge anything, or they'll notice the smudge more than the clean. Maria adjusted her gloves. They can keep their shoes on the ground like normal people, then. R.O. laughed. Careful, walls have ears. Floors too. Maria had learned a long time ago how to be small in big places. She moved with practiced grace, her shoulders relaxed, her smile saved for people who needed it. At night, she was a student. 2 classes a week towards an associate degree in business administration. She had a daughter, Lily, with hair the color of warm toast and eyes like the missing part of Maria's own sky. The days were long, but Maria had promised Lily, and she kept her promises like prayers. On the 25th floor, outside the glass of the executive suite, she leaned on her broom for a moment and watched the world she cleaned for. Men in suits that cost more than her monthly rent spoke into earpieces and flipped through presentations like they were flipping through futures. She saw her reflection overlapping with theirs, a ghost holding a broom across an empire. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A photo from Lily's kindergarten teacher. Lily standing by a paper phone made of construction paper and cotton string. Caption: practicing, polite phone voice, during our community helpers unit. She dialed Daddy, to ask him not to fire Mommy. Promise we'll tell her the phones don't actually dial. Open mouth smile. Maria's heart tripped. She typed back, "That's very cute smile. Lily doesn't have her dad with us, though. Could you ask her to choose, Grandma, or Teacher, for pretend play?" The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Sorry, she told us her daddy works in your building and sometimes he fires people. We thought she made it up. I'll redirect. She's sweet. You're doing great, Mom." Maria stared at the message until the words felt like jelly. Her hand found the nearest wall. She breathed in slow and made it out again. Had she told Lily too many grown-up things? She tried never to, but kids learned the world through what fell out of their parents' tired mouths and worried eyes. In the corner office, Ethan stood with a view of the lake that made even regrets look temporary. The file on Maria lay like a weight at his wrist. He ran a hand through his dark hair and told himself again to be still. He had responsibilities. Shareholders, employees, the thousands whose 401ks sat in their stock. He wasn't a villain. He was a father who wanted his kids' future safe, and safety came from a fortress of numbers that didn't shake when wind blew. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call. Unknown number. He let it ring. It rang again. He answered, half expecting some pitch. "Hello." Silence. The whisper of breath. Then a tiny voice, shaky and bright with the belief that telephones could reach hearts. "Daddy. Please, don't fire Mommy." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" "Daddy, please," the little voice said again, and behind it a woman's muffled sob, then a whisper. "Who is it?" Bent around a grief big enough to walk on. Ethan's chest went tight. He looked down at the file and saw the name again. Maria. He turned slowly toward the glass, like the city could tell him what to do. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," the girl said. "Mommy says I shouldn't call, but she's crying, and when Mommy cries, I pretend I am a superhero, but today I need a daddy superhero, and my teacher said we can practice calling people important. You are important. You are the daddy who fires, but you can also not fire. Can you please not?" Words that would have sounded ridiculous in a boardroom sounded like truth from a child. Ethan sat. He could hear the hum of fluorescent lights wherever they were. He could hear the catch in the woman's breath. Maria. Like she was trying to hide her pain from a stranger. "I think," Ethan said carefully, "I think you have the wrong number for your own daddy, sweetheart. But you might have the right number for someone who can listen. Can you put your mommy on the phone?" There was a clatter. The sound of a receiver being pressed against fabric, and then a woman's voice, rushed and mortified. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. She must have. She got hold of my phone. I would never. Please, Ms. Alvarez," Ethan said, before he could stop himself. Silence. "Who is this?" she asked, caution sharpening the edges of her embarrassment. He swallowed. The truth rose on a tide of something he hadn't felt since the first time he held Grace, humanity louder than protocol. "It's Ethan Vale." Another silence, deeper. He could picture her then. Blue uniform, yellow name patch, the one that kept him awake on spreadsheets. He imagined the way her hand must be pressed to her mouth, the way a person does when they're caught between hope and humiliation. "I didn't ask her to call you," Maria said finally, voice tight. "She was playing. We were doing a school activity. She thought it was pretend." "It's okay," he said softly. She asked very nicely, "I'll talk to her." A pause. "Please disregard this. I know how it looks." I'm not asking for favors. He stared at the crease in the file folder where his thumb had bent it. I know you're not. Please don't fire me for this, she blurted. I mean, because of the call. Not because of. I realize that's ridiculous. It's just, I have Lily. And night school. And a grandmother who needs the doctor twice a month, and, forget it. I'm sorry. I'm a professional. I'll go. Ms. Alvarez. Maria, can you come by my office this afternoon? Her breath hitched. Am I fired? I don't know yet, he said honestly. But I'd like to meet you before I decide what kind of man I am today. After he hung up, Ethan sat very still, like standing might break something invisible. The city looked the same. His heart didn't. Human resources did not like the deviation. Legal did not like the deviation. The operations director liked it least of all. But Ethan was the deviation. He could be whatever he decided to be, and that was the most frightening power of all. At 2:30, Maria knocked on his open door. Without the cart and the mop, she looked smaller and braver, like someone who'd stepped into a room full of sunlight after years of tunnels. Her uniform was neat. There was a tiny rip by the pocket, stitched by hand. Her hair was pulled back, but a few stubborn strands framed her face. She had the kind of eyes that didn't cry easily because they'd already cried enough. Mr. Vale, she said, standing just inside, like the threshold was a border. Please, he gestured to the chair. Sit. Can I get you water? Coffee. Water, please. She took the glass like a person takes a second chance, carefully, with two hands, afraid to spill. He couldn't think of the precise words a lawyer would write. So he reached for the words a father would. Your daughter, she's very brave. Maria's mouth twisted into something like a smile and a warning. Lily thinks superheroes wear aprons and name patches. I didn't correct her. Ethan looked down at the file. 10 years. Night shifts. Commendations. No complaints. Why the night school? Because I'm tired of being invisible, she said, then flushed at her own bluntness. I mean, because I want to move up. Provide better. Show Lily that your world isn't locked from the inside. My world, he repeated softly, trying not to take it personally and taking it personally anyway. She straightened. Look, I know the numbers. I sweep the floors where they get decided. I hear things. I get it. Headcount, margins, efficiencies. I don't want to be a story you tell to feel better about firing me. I'd like to be looked at when you say my name. That's all. He did look. He saw the rip in the pocket. The calluses mapped in pale lines across her hands. The beauty of a person who worked hard and didn't make it everyone else's problem. He thought of Grace at 7, of Natalie's text, of all the times he'd chosen the company over the concert, the call sheet over the bedtime story. He thought of the little voice saying, Daddy, please don't fire Mommy. Do you have a support system? He asked, surprising them both. My mother, Maria said. She watches Lily when I have night classes. She was a seamstress until her hands got loud about it. I have a friend, R.O. And Lily's teacher, Ms. Porter. She's an angel with a coffee stain. Could you, if someone offered a different position with stable hours, would that help? Not a promise, he added quickly. A question. Her eyes flickered like a light bulb deciding whether to glow. It would change everything, she said. But I know how this game works. If the job's being cut, it's being cut. I know you're not the villain. He exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Sometimes I'm afraid I am. They talked for 20 minutes about nothing and everything. About how the building never really slept, it just closed its eyes every few hours. About how Lily wanted to be a nurse, but also a ballerina, and maybe a dog when she grew up. About how Maria studied in the laundry room because it was the only place Lily would fall asleep to the hum. Ethan told her, awkwardly but honestly, about Grace and the recital and how he sometimes bought 2 tickets to things so it would feel like he wasn't going alone. When she left, he stared at the signature line on the layoff sheet until the letters blurred. Then he did something he hadn't done in a very long time. He walked downstairs to operations instead of summoning them up to him. We're not cutting Maria Alvarez, he said, before they could perform the choreography of resistance. In fact, we're going to do the opposite. Post an internal opening, facilities coordinator. Day shift. Keep the total compensation within band by eliminating the redundant contractor role we keep renewing. She'll handle scheduling, vendor check-ins, safety logs. It's a net neutral for budget. Run it by legal if you want. I'll sign." His operations director blinked. "Sir, that's unorthodox." "People are unorthodox," Ethan said. "Try it." He expected backlash. He got a quiet, resentful compliance that hurt more. He knew some would say he'd made a choice because a cute kid called him. He didn't know how to explain that the kid hadn't saved Maria, she'd saved him, pointed him to a part of himself he'd fenced off because it made decisions harder. He sent a short email. "Ms. Alvarez, please review the internal job posting attached. If it's of interest, I encourage you to apply. No promises, but I want you to have the chance you've been working for." She wrote back 10 minutes later, "Thank you for seeing me." That night, in his apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that trapped the city like the world's most expensive photograph, Ethan reheated a bowl of soup and called Grace to say goodnight. She told him about a science experiment with vinegar volcanoes and how a boy in her class put a paperclip up his nose and had to go to the nurse. He laughed in the wrong places because he was thinking about Maria's hands and the way she'd said, "I'm tired of being invisible." "Daddy," Grace said, "you're listening with your eyes instead of your ears again." "I'm here," he said, and he was, more than he'd been for a while. 2 weeks later, Maria started the new job. Not because of favoritism. She'd interviewed, she'd made a spreadsheet with ideas to reduce waste, she'd impressed operations with her practical mind and the calm that people called leadership when a man had it and luck when a woman did. She switched to day shift. She learned the language of purchase orders and elevator maintenance contracts. She wore a blouse instead of a uniform and clipped her ID badge to a lanyard that said, in tiny letters she'd printed herself, "Hi, I'm Maria. I keep things running." On her first day in the new role, she stopped by Ethan's office with a cardboard box filled with small, mismatched things. A plant she'd rescued from the break room with 3 leaves left, a coffee mug that once said, "World's okayest mom," until the dishwasher turned it to, "World's okay mom," and a photo of Lily in a red raincoat holding a paper umbrella. "I brought you this," she said, setting the plant on his desk. "You need something alive in here, otherwise the numbers will eat you." He smiled. "I've been feeling chewy lately. Also," she added, standing in the doorway again, half in and half out, "Lily asked me to tell you thank you. She wanted to call, but we decided we would not call important people during school hours." "Tell her she can call important people on Saturdays," he said, before he understood he meant himself. Saturday came faster than he expected. He found himself in a gymnasium decorated with streamers and a banner that read, "Parent-Child Day, Build a City." He'd told himself he was there because Armitage Tower supported the school's art program. The truth was less presentable. He wanted to see the life he'd touched without getting credit for it. He stood awkwardly near the cardboard boxes, feeling like a stork at a teddy bear picnic, when a little girl in a purple t-shirt looked up at him like she'd seen him in a dream. "You're the daddy from the phone," she announced. "The one who can fire and unfire." "Something like that," he said. "You must be Lily." "I'm Lily," she said solemnly, then leaned in. "Mommy cries less now." She then took his hand the way only children and very brave people did, and pulled him toward Maria. Maria's face moved through surprise to something warmer. "Mr. Vale," she said. "I didn't expect." "Ethan," he said, and the name felt new in his mouth. I'm just here to build a city." They built one with cardboard skyscrapers that bent slightly but stood anyway. Lily insisted on a hospital with a helipad and a park with a pond where cardboard ducks could float, and a building with a big sign that said, in shaky marker letters, "Don't forget." When Ethan asked what they shouldn't forget, Lily shrugged. "Whatever makes people cry if it's gone." As they cleaned up glitter like it was confetti after a parade, Maria tucked a loose strand of Lily's hair behind her ear and looked at Ethan with a softness that felt like a question. "You didn't have to come." "I know," he said. "But I didn't want to miss it." He thought of Grace's recital and the way promises sounded like lies if your feet pointed in the wrong direction. He'd made it to the recital, sat in the second row with flowers bought from a bodega, and cried quietly like a man visiting himself. The months tilted forward. Maria proved that competence wasn't loud. She negotiated a new waste hauling contract that saved the company 30% and bought better brooms for the night crew because she understood that the people who held the tools always knew where the money went. Ethan found excuses to walk the long way to meetings. They talked about ordinary things: where to find the best churros on the south side, whether the lake always smelled a little like secrets, how grief sneaks up on you in grocery store aisles when you pass the cereal the person you loved used to eat. One evening, after everyone had gone home and the building hummed in its sleep, Maria stopped by his office with a folder. "I need your signature on the elevator maintenance schedule," she said, then hesitated. "And, I wanted to ask you something personal. You can tell me to mind my business." He set his pen down. "Ask. You're good at saving structures. Are you good at saving yourself?" He laughed softly, surprised into honesty. "I'm trying." She stepped closer, eyes thoughtful. "I think you are. I think you started when you answered a phone call you didn't have to answer." He looked at her, really looked, and the city fell away. In its place was a room with a plant that was still alive and two people who had both learned how to carry heavy things without letting them turn their hands into stone. "Maria," he said quietly, would you let me take you and Lily to dinner sometime?" "As friends," he added quickly, because her shoulders had tensed. "We can celebrate the city we built out of cardboard." She smiled, relief and fear and something brighter mixing in the curve of her mouth. "Okay," she said, "but I picked the place. Somewhere cheap enough that Lily can order 3 desserts and not feel guilty." They went to a little place with cracked red vinyl booths and a jukebox that refused to play anything recorded after 1998. Lily introduced Ethan to the waitress as the unfiring man, and the waitress gave him a long, amused look that said she'd heard worse names for men in suits. They ate fries and talked about everything that mattered because the small talk had blown away in the wind of what they'd already survived. On the walk back to the train, Lily reached up and took both their hands, swinging them like ropes. "Is this what families do?" she asked, not in a sad way, but as if she were reading a manual. "Sometimes," Maria said, her voice gentle. "Sometimes families look like this. Sometimes like other things. The important part is that your hand is held." Ethan thought of Grace, of the weekends he wanted to feel less like corrections and more like beginnings. He wanted to do this right. He would take it slow, ask permission, honor the space where Maria had built a life with careful stitches. He would not be the man who swept in and made promises he couldn't keep. He could be the man who showed up and stayed. Some nights, when the city pressed close like a secret and the tower's windows went black one by one, he would remember the first time he'd heard Lily's voice, a frail line thrown across a canyon. He would remember how it had felt to catch it. He would remember that compassion is not a cost center, and that numbers are not the only way to measure the health of a place. One rainy afternoon in October, a water main burst under the street, flooding the loading dock and threatening the electrical room. Alarms screamed. People ran. Maria didn't. She grabbed boots and a radio, called maintenance, called the city, rerouted delivery trucks, and stood ankle-deep in cold water shouting, "Not today." Like a person arguing with a god. Ethan found her there, soaked and grinning, and something in his chest settled into place. Like a book returning to its shelf. "You're unbelievable," he said, handing her a towel as if it were a trophy. "I'm visible," she corrected, eyes bright. "Finally, visible," he repeated, and the word felt like a window opening. That night, the board sent him texts full of exclamation points about how facilities had saved hundreds of thousands in potential damages. Ethan forwarded the kudos to the team, adding only, "You did this." Proud doesn't begin to cover it. He didn't mention Maria by name because he didn't need to. Everyone knew. He called Grace from the quiet of his office. She told him she'd gotten a part in the winter play as Tree Number 2, and was excited because trees got to watch everything and sway. He told her that sounded like leadership to him. He told her he loved her. He told her he was learning how to be a better dad from a 7-year-old who wasn't his and a woman who refused to disappear. Later, as he walked out of the building, he saw Maria waiting in the lobby with Lily asleep on the bench, jacket bunched under her head, cheeks flushed with dreams. The lobby lights made halos on the marble. "Everything okay?" he asked. Maria nodded. "Grandma's doctor ran late. I didn't want to wake Lily on the train. I called an Uber. It's coming." He sat beside them. They didn't talk for a while. They just listened to the city breathe. After a time, Maria said, very softly, "Thank you for not firing me." He thought about how close he'd come to erasing her name without ever learning her story, and his stomach lurched at the arrogance of it. "Thank you for calling," he said. "Even if you didn't mean to." She laughed, the sound warm and tired. Lily meant to. She thinks phones can fix anything. Maybe they can fix what they break, he said. If the right person answers. The Uber pulled up. He lifted Lily gently, surprised again at how light and heavy children were at the same time, the weight of a body, the weight of trust. Lily stirred, blinked at him, and smiled that sleepy, wholehearted smile kids give to the people they've decided to keep. "Hi, unfiring man," she murmured, and tucked her face into his shoulder. He carried her to the car, placed her carefully in the seat, and stepped back as Maria buckled her in. The rain misted the air like a blessing. He closed the door, and Maria rolled down the window. For a moment, the world went quiet enough to hear the tiny engines of their hearts. "Good night, Ethan," she said. "Good night, Maria." He watched the taillights disappear into the flow of the city, and he wasn't thinking about quarterly targets or shareholder slides. He was thinking about cardboard cities and hospital helipads and parks with ponds and signs that said "Don't forget." He was thinking about being the kind of man who remembered. On Friday, he sat in a dark auditorium and watched Grace step into a cone of light, small hands folded around a microphone. She sang like a person building a bridge one note at a time. He cried and didn't care who saw. Afterward, he gave her flowers, and she rolled her eyes and hugged him long enough that time slowed. "You made it," she whispered into his suit. "You kept your promise." "I'm learning how," he said. "From superheroes." She looked at him like he was a riddle she was finally starting to enjoy. "You're weird," she declared, which in the language of 7-year-olds means "you're mine." A month later, on a Sunday afternoon that smelled like cinnamon and laundry, Ethan, Maria, Grace, and Lily built pancakes in Ethan's kitchen, 4 hands stirring one bowl, 4 feet a chorus against the tile. They ate at the counter. They argued about whether chocolate chips should be folded or sprinkled. They tried all the ways to be a family that didn't have a name yet. And realized they didn't need one. No headline would ever be written about the moment a man decided not to sign one page. No article would go viral about a woman whose name patch became a lanyard. But in a city that loved big stories, a small one unfolded anyway. A child made a phone call in a classroom where the paper phones were supposed to be pretend, and a man answered like the person he'd forgotten he could be. The world didn't change, but their world did, and on certain nights, when the tower glowed blue against the lake and the plant on Ethan's desk leaned toward the moon, he would reach for his phone and read the last message Maria had sent that day. "Don't forget to eat. Don't forget Grace's tree performance. Don't forget who you are becoming." He would type back, "I won't. Not anymore." Outside, traffic stitched the city together. Inside, a man who used to count things he could measure started counting different things. Breaths that didn't rush, calls he didn't ignore, hands he didn't let go. He had built a fortress of numbers. Now he was learning how to build a home inside it. He wasn't the daddy who fired, not today. He was just a man answering the phone when it rang and saying, softly, "I'm here."